Hi, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested. The patient I have on the bench in front of me today is an Underwood Champion. This particular one is a later era from 1950. This has a few problems with it, some of which I can correct, and one I may not be able to fix myself. I might have to send out to an expert to have that taken care of. What I want to talk about today is a fairly common problem that some typewriters is easier to deal with than others. And that is this here. Everything works fine there, but not there. So if I get some force behind it, it works fine, but if I don't, it doesn't index properly. So I need to go in and make the adjustment. I've already removed the attachment hardware for the paper rest and for the ribbon cover. I don't actually need to remove the ribbon cover, but it's just easier. So, getting down here and looking at this, the problem here is the margin stop. Now, when you look at it, here, this right here is the actual margin stop. And if I turn it around, I can see it better. So let me go ahead and do that. So, right here. Now, most typewriters, if you need to make an adjustment to that, they will tell you that the right way to go about it is to actually file off one side or the other of the stop until it engages properly. So in this case, I would be filing on that side here to allow this to move just a little bit further. And that is the way that the manual recommends on the Underwood portables. However, when I was looking at this, I noticed that this typewriter is not built in that same manner. Here, what we have, so here's a margin bar, and you can see, if I move this around, that there is a screw right below here and a little bit of a bracket. There's the same thing on the other end. You can also see that there is a screw here, right there, and a nut on the end of this. So it turns out that this margin bar is actually adjustable. So I'm going to attempt to do that here. But first, let me show you what I actually have and how the setup works. So the first thing I need to do is get the appropriate size wrench, I think this is it, to loosen this nut. And I'm going to pull this all the way out so that I can show you what we have. And this is the same on both sides. The nut just has a flat end here. And what it does is it will push on the margin bar one way or the other. So if you tighten one side and loosen the other, you can adjust the position of the margin bar. However, in order to do that, you also have to loosen the screws that are holding it to the bracket. So the first thing I need to do is stop dropping this nut. Put this back in its hole. So this screw here is not actually supporting the margin bar. It is adjusting the position of it. Get in there. Sometimes you're always tripped up by the simplest, stupidest things. All right, let's get a better angle at it. There we go. And you want to be careful not to over tighten this. You just need to make sure that it holds position. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a slightly larger wrench because I already know that this takes that size. I'm going to loosen this here just a hair. Come on, get in there. Is it the right size or is it this one? Ah, there we go. And I need to pull in this direction. You don't want to loosen it a lot, just enough to allow it to slide. So I'm going to do the same thing over on the side. All right. Now that I have that, I'm going to loosen this nut as well. And what needs to happen is I need to allow the margin to move further this way, which means I need to adjust the bar that way, in the opposite direction of where I need it to go. So I am going to go to this side. I'm going to pull this out about one full turn, and go to the other side and push it in about one full turn after I loosen up the nut to make sure that it has enough room to do that. And you want it to have a little bit of play. So this is just fine. Everything now works properly. Whether I push from just close by or whether I slam it. That's all I need. That's all it takes to fix this. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to note that the same thing applies to the tab bar, but a little bit differently. You have a large screw here that you can adjust. So I can do the same thing, pull one side and push the other to a little bit in order to adjust where the tab stop hits. However, there is a little bit of a caveat here that's very important to recognize. This bar is not being held perpendicular. If you turn the screw, it will move. And if you turn it this way, so away from me, you can raise this up enough through changing the position of this so that the tab clear will not actually be able to reach up and clear the tab setting. So if you make that adjustment, what you need to do is you need to tighten this end first, mostly. So cinch it down, but don't crank it. And then you need to go to the other side and tighten it here. And that should help turn this over so it will push it down. And if you have to, then you can also take a screwdriver and push on the top of it, or push on one side, pull on the other to help do that for you. So at any rate, that takes care of the banking problem. And next, I'm going to have to examine the line lock, the ribbon reverse, and then there is a problem with skipping that I have not decided whether or not it's the typewriter or my technique, but it seems to be a little bit of both. And that I may not be able to fix because it requires being able to actually get the carriage off so that I can access the escapement, which is no small job on Underwood. Now, supposedly, and they made this pretty easy, however, I have not been able to figure out how to actually get the carriage off in order to get at everything down here. So that will come later. Anyway, adjusting the margin bar on an Underwood Champion. This should also apply to the Underwood Golden Touch. It may not apply to the earlier models, to the earlier Champions, but this will apply to the 50s era, the ones with this style cover. So, once again, my name is Wayne, and this is Type Tested.